the NATO meeting will probably be the most important, where there'll be discussions about new sanctions, new support to Ukraine, as well as this deployment of NATO battle groups to 4 Eastern European countries.
President Zelensky says the talks will reveal who's a friend, who's a partner, and who betrayed Ukraine for money. What's he saying here?
Well, if I was President Zelensky, I probably would be using very similar words. He's a national leader in a country that's fighting for its life, and he wants more support from NATO. He's been very open for some weeks now about a no-fly zone. It will be interesting to see if he has other pitches to put on the table during this meeting, or indeed if he might even attend this meeting in person.
If NATO doubles its troops along the alliance's eastern flank like it's expected to, how much of a difference will this make to the war?
Well, I'm not sure it's going to make a big difference to the war in Ukraine. These really are tripwire forces to ensure that if Russia does anything in those countries, they're attacking NATO countries' troops. Although, given the performance of the Russians in this war, I think they'd be much better than tripwire forces. So they're really just a security guarantor against expansion in the war rather than any intervention in this war.
Well, the US has formally declared that Russia has committed war crimes. How significant is this, and what will it mean for Ukrainians who are suffering right now?
Well, I think what it'll mean is that the US will bring its considerable intelligence collection might into collecting evidence that might go to the ICC in its already announced investigation into war crimes in the Ukraine since 2013. But we should be well aware that these investigations take time. We're talking about months or years. There will be no immediate outcomes from this.
How has Russia had to change its offensive, especially around the capital, Ukraine?
Well, the Ukrainians have outfought the Russians at every step in this war, and they've fought them to a standstill, especially in the north. There's reports now that the Russians are actually digging in and building fortified positions for their artillery, which is well within range of Ukraine. So what that means is Ukrainians may have an opportunity to conduct limited offensives, as they already have around Kiev, to perhaps push the Russians back out of artillery range of their capital.
NATO is estimating that Russian troop losses could be as high as 15,000. That's as many as Russia's lost over 10 years in Afghanistan.
It's a very high figure and impossible to verify, but there are multiple sources reporting on very high Russian casualties in the order of 500 to 1,000 a day. That is an enormous number of casualties, even for the Russians. That will be very hard for them to explain to a domestic audience, and it will be very difficult for them to start to find replacements for them for their war in Ukraine.
And there are reports that the White House is preparing its response to possible chemical, biological or nuclear attack. What do we know about this?
Well, certainly the Russians have been messaging that they might undertake some kind of false flag activity with a biological or chemical weapon for weeks now. And this would signal a significant escalation in the war and will really put NATO in a very difficult position, because if the Russians do use one of these weapons, either as a false flag activity or to get some kind of breakthrough, NATO will have to make a very big decision about does it intervene in this war.
And just finally, Mick, as we speak, G7 and EU leaders are meeting. Do you think anything significant will come out of these talks?
Well, I think much like the NATO ones, they'll be discussing sanctions in particular, how much more pressure they can put on Russia, where they might identify sanction busters. So I think that will be the priority for those talks, but they may well also discuss additional military and non-military assistance to the government of Ukraine.
Mick, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.